he continued, as 24 started to wind down, I think it became apparent and evident to everyone that we certainly could not go into 25 with the same roster we had in 24. Obviously, the results weren't there. And he continued to say throughout the press conference in really various different ways in no uncertain terms that 24 was just entirely unacceptable and that it necessitated changes for 25. Not just on the field, but he also talked about scouting and he talked about analytics. He talked about a whole series of things beyond just players on the field.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank. If you're thinking about starting a business or know someone who is, check out Emprise Bank's SBA loans. It's always good to know your options, and they can be your partner in possible.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of No Other Pod. I'm Jimmy, along with my good buddy Daniel Kooser. Dan, what's going on, my friend?
Dude, not much. Not much at all. And that always feels kind of nice to not have much going on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's. I just got back from being in LA visiting family, so it was a very busy week. It's a little bit of work, a little bit of fun. So that was
You're a Disney adult too. You know, I realize I go to Disney about once for every 4 times you go.
When I go back to LA, I tend to go because a lot of my family has the passes.
Hell yeah.
So I don't, I go once a year maybe to Disneyland, and last few years I've been to Disney World a handful of times because different sides of the family have wanted to go. But Disneyland was fun. That's where I grew up, so very used to it. But it was a good time. I enjoyed it.
What do you do? So you probably don't rope drop nothing no more, do you?
We did when I was there this time because my cousin and her husband who have the pass down there, they're not going to renew their pass because it's too expensive, and my brothers came and whatnot, and one of my brothers is out of town, so we got there early in the morning because you can get a shit ton of stuff done early in the morning.
Oh, sure. So where do you go first when you get there rope dropping?
Well,
and why is it Peter Pan's Flight?
It's not we did Peter Pan's Flight like dead last. It was like late at night. All the kids were on. No, we were the new Tiana ride just opened at Disneyland. It opened like 3 days before, so we were in the virtual queue that they're doing because you got to get in the virtual queue, and we ended up getting group number 2. So that was like basically the first thing we did. We went and stopped at Pirates of the Caribbean on the way because there was literally no wait. So we did Pirates of the Caribbean, then we went and did the new Tiana ride, which is like a new Splash Mountain. So
do they have that Runaway Railway?
Yes, they do.
Like
that's newer at Disneyland, but yes, they have. That's a fun one.
A very cool ride.
Yeah, that one's fun. Right next door to it is Roger Rabbit, which is a Disneyland exclusive, which is
new, isn't it?
It's been around for a while, but it feels like you're on an acid trip the entire time.
Oh, and you're in the taxi cab.
You're in the taxis. It's like the teacups. You can spin them, but you're going through the movies. And the whole movie, if you've ever watched Roger Rabbit, it feels like you're on an acid trip while you're watching the movie. So it's just that in a ride form. So,
man, God. My wife's going to listen to this show and be like, you got Dan talking about Disney again? Stop it.
But it was it was a good time because they don't do like the food festivals like they do out on the East Coast, but they still do like a smaller version of like the festival of the holidays or whatever. So they had some specialty food items and drinks and such that I got to try, some different coffees and holiday foods and such. So it was good. It was fun. Ate too much food, spent too much money, but had a good time.
We talked about heading out there together sometime and hitting up the Disney situation. I don't know if you could hang with me though, because I plan everything out. I don't just wander. Okay. But I mean, I think when you got 2 planners in a group, that's never good. It's like one person needs to take the lead and everyone else is like, take the lead.
You let me manage the app and I'll be happy because I swear to God, all that we paid for the extra little like lightning lane thing.
Of course.
And I know all the tricks because we'd be in line and I'd be like messing around on my phone. And like, what are you doing? I'd be like, I just got us Guardians of the Galaxy for 4 minutes from now. And they're like, how? It said it wasn't available till 10:30. And I was like, I know ways. It's fine. So I don't think we waited in line longer than 15 minutes the entire day. So
hell of a deal.
Yeah, it was good. So had a good time. Like I said, ate a lot of food, drank a lot of drinks, and went on some rides. It was good. Didn't get too wet on the water ride, which was good. I brought a change of clothes in case I did get wet, but it worked out. So had a good time.
Great.
Yeah. So, and then went to a USC football game. Saw them actually win a game. We beat Nebraska. It was a little touch and go there for a moment, but we pulled out the victory with our new quarterback. So had a good time. KU had a big win, huge win for KU this weekend in football. So
pretty fun deal.
Yeah, but how's your weekend? It was good.
I had a couple improv shows, so that was that filled up the time.
That's always a fun time.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah,
but I'm ready to get back to MLS playoffs because they had a week off, and they get to get back to it this week, man. And we're on Thanksgiving on the horizon here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
NWSL championship coming to town this weekend. I mean, it's no shortage of things going on.
Lots of soccer happening. Heartbreaking game in Orlando. We knew it was going to be a tough one for the KC Current, but
nah, man, nah, miss me with that, dog.
It was a I can't say it was a fun game to watch because, Orlando early on, they were doing a pretty decent job controlling, especially in the second half. But listen to Currently, you'll get the whole breakdown of everything, and Dan and Chris will talk about current season and what happened and what
people have already listened, bro. We recorded this. It was released today.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
People, we're out before the boys' side. Isn't that wild?
Yeah. My travel schedule made things all sorts of crazy. So we're out a little bit later than normal, but there is certainly a lot of Sporting KC news to talk about because Sporting finally, this last Thursday, November 14th, released their roster moves ahead of the 2025 season. And I think some of this stuff we anticipated, and then some of the stuff maybe surprised me a little bit. And then there was a press conference that was done after the fact with Sporting director Mike Burns, where he shed, I would say he was actually quite candid and shed a lot of new light on some of the decisions that were made and why. So we'll go over some of the roster announcements that were made and then talk about what Mike Burns said and what we think it means going forward. I do have to ask you, though, before we get into the nitty-gritty of these specific roster decisions, there's some theorizing that there might be some hints dropped about the new primary kit coming up. Did you see this going on Twitter?
I see we're being kind of devilish. I see there's a blue. They're leaning into some Blue Hell branding is what's going on. I see a little devil tail on the end of the C and SKC and some horns on top of the S and the C. So
we got this like old English style font with like the smear. It's like almost like a tattoo smear kind of deal looking. So they tend to do this around this time where they start dropping little design hints as to like, oh, these might be some themes or some motifs you see in the jersey that we're probably not going to see.
What's happening already?
February.
The designer already like tweeted and was like, I'm proud of this or something like that, right? Did you see that?
I don't know if I saw that. No, I might have missed that one.
Okay, finding it.
You're finding it right now? This is breaking news to me as we're recording this.
No, he said, well, he tweeted the Blue Hell awaits, and it was the whole image, right?
Okay.
And he's the associate creative director, Nate Stathoff, I want to say.
Oh, okay. So this is a thing. That's about as close to a confirmation as you'll get from somebody in the know.
100%, because the Mike down the byline had said, since it's been a few hours since the announcement was made, is it an okay time now to discuss this? And he posted a blurry graphic with the tail, and Nate, associate creative designer or director, he retweeted Mike with eyeballs. And it's like, hold up.
That's something. I mean, we'll see. I don't know that, like, it could just be that little, like, devil SKC is, like, just, sort of, like, on the back of the neck or on the bottom of the shirt is, like, a little tag or something. But I'm interested. It's very clear that this is going to be a theme. I don't know that they've done a full, like, season-long campaign or a full jersey theme revolving around the Blue Hell specifically. I mean, obviously, there's they have Welcome to the Blue Hell in some of the intro videos and such, but this might be the first time where they sort of plan a long-term campaign, or what appears like it might be a long-term campaign around the Blue Hell. So I'm interested.
Well, I mean, the last season felt like we were in hell, so let's just keep it going.
It did. So anyway, that was just a little tidbit that I thought was interesting, because it's not, it's what, February usually by now, and they just do a jersey release on social media. Like, they don't do the events of old days like they used.
Yeah, I don't. Most people send like the podcasts that cover the team, like a free jersey, like reveal on the show.
Yeah,
that's just what I've heard in certain geographical areas that are more popular. If we want to get on their level, they should probably do that too. I'm just saying.
Yeah, if they, hey, I'm not saying they have to, but if they wanted to loop us in on something, I would be open to negotiating for a jersey, and we could pump it up a little bit. So
have a conversation. I mean, hey, BJ Kissel, you know him? Get him on the phone. Talk to him. What do we got to do?
So
jersey reveal right here.
If you are a sporting KC employee and you have any sort of sway, just know we're offering our services for the low price of a jersey. So
did we take edibles tonight? What are we?
I didn't. No, I'm possibly jet lagged from being on an airplane.
There it is. That's about the same thing. That's the same effect you'll get from taking an edible, as being jet lagged.
Sleeping on an air mattress for, the last 5 days, which at my age is not something that you typically want to do.
Hey man, when you new hips, I know a guy.
Yeah, it's true. I think I'm okay right now. It's more my neck and my shoulders that are the problem areas. So.
I lay on an air mattress and I'm immediately deflated halfway through the night, and I'm like on the ground. What's that about?
That happened to me last time I stayed at my cousin's apartment. I woke up and I was like, on the floor, and I was like, what happened? And turns out there was actually a hole in the air mattress. So I was like, okay, cool. That messed up my back for about a week and a half.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
My wife and I slept at her grandparents' house on an air mattress together, and that's never good, because every time I sit down,
holding in,
I launch her like the Blob from the movie
Heavyweights.
I would just lay down and she'd be like, Jesus.
That movie made me want to go to summer camp, whether it be fat camp or otherwise, just because I wanted to go on the Blob.
Didn't you? That movie made me sneak snacks.
Oh, yeah.
As an adult.
Yeah. No, it's great. I love that movie. I still love that movie. I quote that movie all the time.
Yeah. Dude, he goes, just the little things. He's like, get on the scale. He steps on the scale. He goes, get off the scale.
Get off the scale.
That's it. That little thing, that little exchange. The Perkis system, man. Tony Perkis.
And then Jerry Stiller, his dad's in it. He's like the old man who loses it, who buys. Oh my God, that movie cracks me up.
Dude, I love it. And all the people, you got Goldberg from Mighty Ducks.
Mm-hmm.
You got Kenan Thompson from Mighty Ducks.
Yeah.
Oh my God,
so funny.
It's on Disney Plus.
Yeah,
I think I will too.
The Chipmunks.
That's one that didn't get to be reviewed by Rotten Tomatoes and stuff, but it has tens of thousands of fan reviews that are positive.
Just a cult following from people our age.
Absolutely.
I just walk around quoting it inexplicably, yelling things.
Man.
I'm feeling skinny, Tony.
Buddy,
you broken my camera.
You got to get the buddy system going.
And then Goldberg's just there raising his hand for no reason, with nobody, just by himself.
No reason.
Nobody knows what we're talking about, but it's okay. Let's take our break here, and we'll come back. We'll actually talk Sporting KC roster announcements and break down Mike Burns' press conference. So we'll be right back.
Looking for tickets for your next event? Tickets for Less is your number one source. Save big on every purchase when you use promo code KCSN at ticketsforless.com.
Listen, I know we're jumping right into the Mike Burns thing, but I got to tell you, I could listen to this Bostonian speak for hours. The way the man talks with a Boston accent, talking about, what do you say? How would you do a Boston accent? I can't even do it.
I mean, the only Boston I can, wicked smart.
Going
down to see the Sox play a game of ball.
Oh, he's a janitor. He's got to go clean up some bath.
To see the Patriots, Tom Brady,
the clam chowder.
Clam chowder. I don't know, the worst Boston accent.
Freaking, what's his name? media. Bill Burr was just on SNL, and they did a whole sketch about cleaning up Baf.
Yeah, it's so funny.
Good.
Speaking of the Nate Bargatze episode from a couple weeks ago, you watched that? That was good. I just watched it over the weekend. The sketch where he's pushing the dead body down the water slide had me rolling on the floor. Anyway, we're just gonna do a comedy podcast now, review movies and comedic TV shows.
Listen, that would sell, dude. People do it. I mean, people have very popular TikToks of just reacting to videos with their facial expressions.
Mm-hmm.
How is that popular?
You could do it. You got the face for it.
I got the face for it. I'm just saying, it's how does that happen?
I don't know.
How do people just get popular from the weird shit?
I don't know. There's some guy I see that gets popular. He just plays songs and he just stares at the camera, and there's just two songs playing in the background. He's just like, this one sounds like this one. He just points and stares blankly, and it's very popular. I don't get it.
I'm gonna have a TikTok where I review vegan cheeses.
There you go.
Wouldn't that be something?
I had a vegan feta this past weekend. That was very good on an omelet.
Nice.
Yeah.
I tried to make vegan feta in the blender. It said pulse it, and I did, and it like liquefied immediately, and I was like, okay, well, that's not really feta anymore, is it? More of a cheese sour cream base here.
Yeah. So, anywho, let's talk Sporting KC roster moves. Sporting Kansas City announced on Thursday that they exercised 2025 contract options for the following 7 players: Steven Afrifa, William Agata, Zoran Basong, Logan Ndembe, Memo Rodriguez, Ryan Sheway, and Robert Volader. Now, that means Sporting KC declined 2025 contract options for Robert Castellanos, Ozzy Cisneros, Danny Flores, and Chris Windorf. And they also announced, in addition, the following 4 players are out of contract and will not return to the club: Andrea Fontes, Remy Voltaire, Tim Melia, and the captain, Johnny Russell. So, that is 8 players right off the bat gone. That's not an insignificant number of players that are gone. And they also they confirmed that there were 11 players that entered 2025 with guaranteed contracts: Jake Davis, Joaquin Fernandez, Tim Leibold, Alan Polito, John Pulskamp, Nemanja Radia, Denny Rosero, Daniel Shallowy, Kyrie Shelton, Alenis Vargas, and Eric Tommy. Eric Tommy is an interesting one because all the information we had for much of the year was that he was on an option up until this point, but we found out that I guess that option converted to be fully guaranteed before even Mike Burns signed on with the club. So he is coming back for at least one more year.
Wasn't that some kind of like incentive he hit, like some kind of stats or whatever?
Some sort of mechanism. Yeah. I
triggered the option.
It triggered something at some point. So,
pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say, let me ask you this. Are you surprised? There are some big names here that are not coming back. And I think people had started to prepare themselves for the idea that players, the likes of Tim Melia and Johnny Russell, were maybe not coming back, although there were some that were still hopeful that there may be a way. Does any of this right off the bat, either people who are leaving or people who are staying, surprise you?
Honestly, the biggest surprise is that Kyrie Shelton was listed in the defenders list.
That is something that is interesting. There were three players that their designation, when Sporting sent out the press release about what their position alignment is, there were 3 players that I think were somewhat interesting. Kyrie Shelton was listed as a defender, so it's pretty clear that they're treating him full-time as a defender. Jake Davis was listed as a midfielder, so he's seemingly being converted back to a midfielder full-time. But Zoran Basong was also listed as a midfielder, not a defender, even though he was signed as a left back. So I don't know. Maybe Peter liked what he saw when he had to put Zoran in the midfield and that double pivot a little bit with Jake at the end of the year. Because, with Logan Ndembe and Tim Leibold already on the team, Logan's option obviously picked up, that's 2 left backs right there. You don't need 3 left backs on the roster.
Yeah.
And if you, depending on how you classify Kyrie Shelton, we have 3 left backs and 0 right backs currently on the roster. So,
oh boy,
it's going to be
and center backs, man. I guess you're looking at right now. Rosero and Joaquin Fernandez in the middle, and they've hardly had any time together. So
right,
but they'll get a full off season together, so that's cool. Fernandez didn't exactly end the season as well as he might have hoped.
No.
With an excellent goal on his own goal, but it all these, we have just 18 players under contract for next season.
Mm-hmm.
Leaves a lot wide open, man, to really make some moves. I don't know. It's all just kind of, believe it when I see it kind of situation.
Yeah, they could add 10 to 12 more players using a series of different roster mechanisms that are available for the senior team. There are some players like Ozzy Cisneros, Danny Flores, Chris Rindov that, we never really saw. And, they were signed and there they are and never really did anything. So thank you and goodbye. I think it's interesting. I think maybe the one that I am most interested in them having exercised the contract option for, Memo Rodriguez. That one is a little interesting. I liked what Memo had to do, throughout the year. And if he is a depth piece that, again, is not considered a starting midfielder, then I think that's fine. Eric Tommy is still listed as a midfielder. It will be very interesting to see how they use Eric Tommy this year, depending on if and when they sign a new number 10, which we'll talk about more in a little bit. But, with Jake Davis presumably being a shoe-in starter, assuming nothing crazy happens. The way that he came on at the end of the year, and then with the money that they have invested in somebody like Nemanja Radia, if he's performing at all, I assume they'd like to get him on the field. It's going to be interesting to see what this midfield rotation ends up looking like. And then, like you said, the center backs, that's a question mark too. If anything, it feels like the front line is maybe the most set, but I think we're probably going to see some potential additions on the wing, at least there too. So this is a team that is by no means complete at this point. So it leaves a lot to happen over the next handful of months. So should be interesting.
Could be fun, or it could be extremely frustrating.
It could be, yeah.
I just don't like seeing Cincinnati getting like a record transfer fee to bring this guy in from Europe, and we will never get anything close to that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, probably not. They did talk about investment. I put up a list on Blue Sky of a whole series. What I thought were the most interesting of the Mike Burns quotes. It's funny. I was sitting there. I wasn't able to be at the press conference because I was out of town. So I'm sitting there watching. It's almost 30 minutes. I watched the video and I'm transcribing and tweeting out these quotes. And when I finished watching the video, I checked my email. And while I had been doing that, Sporting KC emailed an entire quote sheet of all of it already written out for me. And I was like, God damn it. This could have been so much faster.
Is that the same thing on the website here?
Yeah. But there were some things that were pretty interesting. Burns, he started out saying, quote, "To be honest with you, when I arrived in the summer, without question, I had an eye on the remainder of the 24 season, but I also had on 25, 26, and 27. So,
first of all, don't count your chickens, sir. Trying to, sign your own paycheck for like 3 more years. That's crazy.
Well, I get it. He's basically the GM of the club, so he's got to kind of look. But I think that kind of just shows you where he's like, by the time he came around, it was pretty clear that like, okay, this season is not on the trajectory that a lot of us had hoped. We did not pick up where we left off at the end of 23. So he's already kind of evaluating and is like, okay, what do we got going here? And he said, he continued, as 24 started to wind down, I think it became apparent and evident to everyone that we certainly could not go into 25 with the same roster we had in 24. Obviously, the results weren't there. And he continued to say, throughout the press conference in really various different ways in no uncertain terms, that 24 was just entirely unacceptable and that it necessitated changes for 25. Not just on the field, but he also talked about scouting and he talked about analytics. He talked about a whole series of things beyond just players on the field. And that was maybe one of the most interesting takeaways that I had, was that this is like a whole philosophical shift in how they approach this from ownership investment standpoint. So
Yeah,
I don't know.
true.
He did talk about Tim Melia, Johnny Russell. He also threw in Andre Ufontes. Felt bad for Remy because he's sort of the fourth of that four. But he said, I'd be remiss if I didn't single out Tim, Johnny, and Andre Ufontes, who've not only been great players with the club for a long time, but ambassadors, teammates in the community and with the fans. And he talked about how those were really difficult conversations, but they were very professional. And I don't know. Do you think that we're going to see Johnny Russell and Tim Melia in particular in other MLS jerseys next year?
I mean, it's certainly possible, right? I mean, it's I could see someone taking them on. You know what I mean? I it'll make me sad. It'll feel weird, but it's absolutely. I don't think they're done playing. I think they'd like to keep going
for sure. They both think they have. I mean, it's like when we saw Beasler in an Austin FC jersey for that season.
Yeah, it was weird, but he had to get one more season out, right? Was it 1 or 2?
I think it was just 1.
Okay,
it wasn't a lot. I mean, I think that's probably the weirdest one for me was that. I mean, when Benny left, it was a little odd at first, but you got used to it. He bounced around to a couple of teams before coming back for a brief stint, but I don't know. Johnny and Tim, I think it's going to be. I saw some Galaxy fans who were interested in bringing Johnny Russell over to the LA Galaxy as sort of an offensive piece.
Why not?
He wouldn't start for them, but.
What?
I don't know if he's going to start for anybody, honestly, at this point in his career.
It's just, all things end, man. And you mourn the situation. It's part of sports. It's part of growing up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So hopefully to them that, they'll be able to find a place and it is what it is. We'll move on. But yeah, Mike Burns said, Peter and I met with ownership and we outlined where we felt we needed more horsepower from a staffing standpoint. I can't tell you how supportive ownership was. In the coming weeks, we'll look to hire an assistant sporting director to oversee the second team and the academy. And then he continued, we'll add enhancements to our scouting department. We'll add to our analytics department. And he talked specifically in detail about like the specific types of scouts they have and how they're going to add another European scout. They're looking to add a couple more scouts in Central and South America. Like they're really trying to add places or people all over the world. It sounds like, and that's what I thought was maybe for all the people who've been screaming for Peter to be fired and thought that was the solution. I think this is again, I'm not trying to make excuses for Peter, but I think these are some of the things that we don't necessarily see behind the scenes where. One, if ownership is not approving, transfer fees to pay, that's a problem. But if Sporting is playing catch up to the rest of these teams in terms of global scouts and infrastructure, we don't have a sporting director and assistant sporting director that can just focus on academy and second team. Like they talked about a shift in second team strategy and how they approach those players. Like this sounds like it may be a total philosophical reset, not just on the field, but off the field. At least from the last few years.
Well, that's how it sounds. Yeah, for sure, man. I'm hoping that that's the case, right?
Yeah. Our primary focus is a 10, a guy who can break down lines in the final third, can score, can set up goals. He said it would be a small miracle if that 10 was not a designated player, is how he put it. So you talked about we're not breaking records probably with the transfer fees, but with that number 10, who knows? I mean, you got to find the right guy and they got to be willing to come here and whatnot. But, I don't know. This single sentence, I think, was maybe the most interesting quote. And I want to get your thought on who you think he might be talking about. He said, quote, "We had 11 guys that were under contract. And I want to be careful how I say this. But if we had the ability to make more changes after this year, then we would have." That's I don't want to.
It is. It's saying like, yeah, we had guaranteed contracts with these guys. Wish we didn't. These specifics. So it sucks. I'd really rather not speculate on who he was talking about. I think we can all kind of do that on our own, without being publicly rude. Let's just be privately rude.
We're just going secretly. It's probably this guy. I don't know.
You know what I mean? It's just, but that's crazy. That's a crazy thing to say. Because now if you're a player, you're just like, is he talking about me?
You're looking around. You're like, it's you?
You're like, I don't like. You're good, man. Okay, I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
I had a couple iffy moments. I get it.
Well, and when you combine that with, he said another thing. He goes, we felt we needed to make changes on the field, but we also needed to make changes in the locker room. We need to get new bodies in, but not just new bodies for new bodies, but hopefully the right guys on and off the field. Like, it was clear that they felt that, and maybe it's nobody's fault. It's just after losing so long, you just kind of get stuck in that rut. But clearly, they felt that there needed to be a cultural reset, I guess, in the locker room too. Like, they were unhappy with how things were going, not just in terms of results on the field, but in terms of in the locker room. So that's I don't know. I mean, I know you say you don't want to speculate, but there are a couple of guys that I can look on the roster, and I'm like, I don't know how they fit in with, like, they're bringing in a DP10. How does that guy fit alongside a DP10? I don't know.
I'm fine speculating like that. What I'm not fine doing is saying, like, yeah, this guy's shit. That's absolutely who he's talking about.
Sure. Yeah. It's just like, it'll be interesting. I mean, they're looking to potentially bring in 2 designated players this summer. It depends. He reiterated that the winter transfer window is kind of hard because it's not the same as the rest of the world. He did temper expectations a little bit, saying, ideally we'd love to have our roster set in January. I just don't know how feasible it is given what players are going to be available to us. So, I mean, they're definitely going to bring in players across all lines. He said he wants to bring in. We will bring in another goalkeeper, he said. Right now we have 2, 100% will bring in that. It would be, in an ideal world, it would be a domestic keeper. Our preference would not be to use an international slot there, but we may have to. And then he continued, in the back line, we have this is funny. This made me laugh because this is a backhanded compliment. In the back line, we have a lot of numbers in terms of the number of players, but we'll look to add there. I'm like, he's just basically saying, yeah, we got a bunch of guys, but they're just kind of a bunch of guys. And then he goes, in the midfield, it'll be a winger and a 10. Right now we have Allen and Willie up top, but if a forward presents itself or we have an opportunity to sign another, we will. There's no line we're looking at, midfield, defenders, and forwards, where we're saying, okay, we're fine there. We're not fine anywhere. We got to get better everywhere.
Yeah, no one would doubt that, man. No one disagrees. I mean, we're not fine. So let's, dude, I'm all in. I mean, if this is all just words, I'm going to be pretty pissed off.
Sure.
But if this is some real shit, if we're getting down to brass tacks, man, I'm going to hit it hard as soon as MLS Cup ends. Let's go. Hey, dog's getting upset.
I know. She's very upset with
vocal.
Tonight she is. She's not normally this vocal, but right now she's.
Now, she missed you. You were out of town.
I know. I got home like an hour before we recorded this podcast, so
she's nice. Not calmed down yet.
No, she's still a little hyper. But I don't know. It's just, this is, again, and it's funny because I think, okay, I know. Thank you. I appreciate your input. If you ask Revs fans who had Mike Burns in their front office before, they weren't big fans of Mike Burns. But this seems like he's pretty transparent in what he's looking for here. So I'm excited.
So you're right. There were a lot of Revs fans in general that were like, "Oh boy, do not get excited, Sporting KC fans. Like, this is not a good thing for you. You will regret this. This is a bandage on your wound. Like, it's gonna leak on. It's gonna leak on you."
But part of me wonders too. I mean, the Revs, it's similar to Sporting in that, like, their ownership. I don't know how invested their ownership really is, because they're owned by Robert Kraft, aren't they? Who owns Patriots? So how much is he really caring about investing in the Revs when he's trying to rebuild the Patriots dynasty over there?
I don't know. I mean, I'd like to think he's got people that are focused on it, like that he's put in charge of them, and he can, just be the checkbook.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. But I don't know. I'm interested. I'm happy. Mike Burns is saying the right things, and that's all you can ask for right now. You're 100% correct. It has to follow up with actions. But
I've had enough political shit to where if you're just talking, like, it's gonna piss me off.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're right. He's just, I would say he's not talking in political terms. He's being pretty, like, the fact that he even said, yeah, there's guys on our roster right now that I wish we didn't have to keep. That's crazy. I've never heard a sporting director or a GM across any sport say that. So, it'll be interesting. I'm definitely excited.
That's that Boston fearlessness, dude. Like, just say whatever you want and worry about the repercussions later.
Figure it out later, yeah. The other thing I guess that's worth talking about too is Benny Feilhaber is leaving.
Yep.
And it was a little unclear when they announced it, sort of like how it transpired. It sounds like it was mutual, or it wasn't that.
He was asked about this.
Yeah, it was not that it was mutual in terms of like Sporting was unhappy with him as SKC two coach, but Mike Burns said, my understanding of it is Benny has aspirations to coach at a higher level, and we as a club are completely supportive of that. The separation was completely amicable. So, there are rumors that there might be some MLS jobs that are currently open that Benny might be in the mix for. And so if that's what Benny wants to do, more power to him.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think he does want to coach at a bigger level, and the club's like, yeah, we support that. And, it's not going to be here because there's a little guy called Peter Vermees. So he's kind of a big deal, I guess.
Yeah. And Peter clearly is going to be here for a little bit as they work through this. But
till he's fucking 90.
I don't know. I'm cautiously optimistic. Things have to happen now. But if ownership really is willing to put more money into this, if they really are expanding the staff, the analytics department they talked about, the scouting department, this is the type of thing that, as Burns said, this isn't going to be come February, all problems are fixed, but it'll hopefully be steps in the right direction. And then come this time, a year or two from now, we'll be able to look back at this offseason and go, that was the starting point for a pretty big turnaround for Sporting Kansas City if they want to compete in the modern MLS market. So, I don't know. It'll be interesting. We'll see. I guess one thing you can say, though, that's clear is anything can happen in MLS Cup playoffs. We saw that we talked about last time. Atlanta took down Miami. So you could be the best team in the league, even if the advanced stats say you're wildly overperforming. You could win the Supporter Shield with a points record, and anything can happen in terms of MLS Cup playoffs. So they resume this Saturday with some pretty good matches. We got a Hudson River derby between NYC and the New York Red Bulls, and then later that night, LAFC in Seattle. Next day, we got Orlando and Atlanta, and then the Galaxy in Minnesota. So which of these playoff matchups are you most looking forward to watching this weekend?
Well, that New York one sounds exciting. The two lower seeds facing each other there, but the LAFC Seattle could be fun, man. It's like, does Seattle have some of that magic? Like they're still hanging around. They show moments of like, can they be the team? I don't really know. But of course, your Cinderella Atlanta over there.
I know.
That's a fun one too, man. It's like, can they, knock out number 4 Orlando?
Especially those two teams who do not like each other.
Yeah, they're very much rivalries. They hate each other's fan bases.
Yeah.
I'm all in. It's a good time.
And especially
double headers, man. I'm excited for these.
Mm-hmm. And especially since these are single elimination games again. We're not doing the best of 3 series. This is where MLS gets crazy if they go to shootouts or whatnot. And again,
there is extra time now. They will not go directly to shootouts.
Right. I'll go on a limb right now. One of these games is going to a shootout at least. We're going to get a shootout this weekend, I think.
Well, that's interesting. And obviously all these games are on MLS Season Pass, but the last one of the weekend, LA, Minnesota, is also on FS1.
There you go.
That's interesting.
Be interesting to see who is commentating on these games, considering Taylor Twellman reportedly punched an audio engineer. Did you see that report?
I did hear about that, yes.
Yeah, so we'll see if he is on the call for any of these games. But yeah, I'm excited, man. I mean, I can't root for Atlanta anymore. I don't really also want to root for Orlando. So I'll watch that game, but at this point, I'm just rooting for chaos. This is the fun part of being a fan. When your team's not in it, then you just want good, chaotic games. I don't want blowout. I want good games. I want extra time. I want shootouts. If you could give me 4 shootouts, I'm all about it. I love it. I just want I want to see craziness happen. But I think you're right. I think that New York game, that might be the one that could get the most aggressive, because how those two teams and two fan bases feel about each other, followed by that Atlanta game. So We'll see. I'm looking forward to it. Should be a good one. Outside of that, there was some breaking news on Tuesday. That's a little interesting, but I don't think anybody saw coming. But it's not official yet. But according to Tom Bogert, he reported that Tata Martino is out as the head coach of Inter Miami, and he decided to leave for, quote, personal reasons after leading them to a league record 74 points this season. So Lionel Messi and Luis Suarez and Sergio Busquets and Jordi Alba and the team that scored the most points in the history of the league currently has no coach. So I don't know who's going to take that one over. I think this kind of shocked people. He's probably going to go back to national team coaching, I would guess, but it made me laugh because when bad things happen in Miami, I laugh.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, just had a very historic season, and then he's like, I don't want to piggyback off that success. I think I'm done.
Yeah, I can't imagine, like, I guess it's like, think about Tom Brady. Like, he's the GOAT of NFL football. Like, if you're going to get a new coach for the greatest player of all time, I guess they got to go to Lionel Messi and just be like, okay, who do you want as coach? Because you can't just hire anybody. Like, you're not going to get a Benny Feilhaber who's going to be Inter Miami's manager. You're not going to get an MLS lifer who's going to coach Lionel Messi. This is like,
exactly.
It's probably going to be some friend of Messi's from his playing days who's now, Xavi or something, who's now going to be coach of Miami, would be my guess. I don't know.
You think he's got the say, huh? You think it's going to be whoever he wants?
I think Messi could walk into Don Garber's office and take a shit on his desk, and Don Garber would be like, thank you. I appreciate the gesture.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the chocolate-covered pretzel.
May I have another? I think that Messi has all the say for everything. So I think absolutely he's got 100% say on who's going to be the next coach of Inter Miami.
Man, I guess we'll see. Pretty wild.
Yeah. So it's I'll go on a limb and say it's probably not Benny Feilhaber. He's probably not in the running.
Yeah.
But and then I guess just the last thing to talk about this week, the U.S. men's national team beat Jamaica in a CAF Nations League. You're doing the dance. Thank you.
Doing the Pulisic dance. Woo, buddy. That really made some people upset and some people happy.
It's just,
it's pretty dumb. Pretty dumb is what I'm saying.
Look, if you didn't know what Pulisic probably believes at this point, like, this isn't surprising. Like, he's not been overly secretive about it. That's
why he plays Mexico so hard, because he's probably racist.
I do think it is a weird phenomenon of all these professional athletes starting to do that dance now. Like a couple of NFL players have done it, and like
fighters too.
The Raiders tight end did it, and then when he was asked about it in the post-game presser, they just ended his media availability and didn't let him answer it. And I'm like, okay, like, y'all asked Colin Kaepernick about his thoughts endlessly for days, and nobody pulled him off there. The first time he asked somebody about a stupid Trump dance, they're like, nope, sorry, can't answer those questions. Come on,
it's wild. It's
insane,
bro. Everyone's scared.
But in terms of soccer on the field, particularly in the first half, they were pretty dominant. Pulisic got his goal. He forced an own goal. Pepe and Timo Weah, they each got a goal.
They played twice since we spoke, right? They beat Jamaica twice.
Yeah, it was sort of a 5-2 aggregate over the course of those two matches. But I mean, Poch, he's got some interesting things to say, and it's pretty clear that he's still figuring out his team and trying to figure out, okay, what's the best lineup, what's the best attack, etc. But I mean, he had a quote where he was asked about MLS players compared to Europe-based players, and he said, players are going to have the same opportunity playing in MLS as they have playing in the Premier League or in La Liga. So he's probably making some of those U.S. men's national team Twitter fans a little angry with his stances. But he's saying, man, if you're playing minutes in MLS, I'd rather have that than you being on the bench for some third division Belgian team just because they're in Europe. And I like 100%. That. So I don't know. It's at least, I don't know about you, but I at least feel the U.S. men's national team is like mildly interesting at this point, since they have brought in a new coach and are shaking things up a little bit. It's not the same old anymore. So
no, I mean, it feels different, but again, we'll just have to wait and see, man, because it always feels different.
Yeah, I'm still not expecting them to get past, probably the round of 16 at best in the World Cup if everything breaks right. I mean, who knows? Soccer, crazy things could happen. But I don't know. It'll be interesting. So I don't know, man. There's well, now that we know who Sporting KC is bringing back next year and who's not going to make the cut, we'll try to get some interviews lined up and see if we can get some players in, talk about their, what's to come for Sporting KC. I don't know if we're going to be able to do it. Maybe we try to get some of the players who are no longer with Sporting, see if they'd be willing to talk about sort of how things went down with us. I doubt it, but we can try.
That's a quick DM away.
Yeah, somebody like Tim, we've had a pretty good relationship with in the past, so we'll see what we can do and see if we can't have them come on. And I mean, I don't think anybody, Tim in particular. I mean, we've both interacted with Tim, and he's probably it's him and Melia who are like the genuinely nicest athletes I think we've talked to as part of this podcast and around Sporting Kansas City.
Oh yeah. Tim was our boots on the ground in the Orlando bubble, man. That was crazy.
Yeah. He's not going to, neither him nor Johnny or anybody, they're not going to come on here. They're not going to flame Sporting. I mean, it would really just be more as like a celebratory look back at their time here and kind of talk about what they want to do going forward in their career. But we'll see what we can do. We'll try to figure something out. So you got anything else for our good listeners?
No, I guess I don't.
Well, we will be back next week, leading up to Thanksgiving, to talk about all that happened in the MLS Cup playoffs. And if there are any rumors of signings, we're probably going to start seeing rumored signings. There is expansion drafts coming up in the near future. Maybe San Diego FC won't have fake accounts on Blue Sky that are making everybody mad because that happened on Tuesday. There's a whole controversy about that's not actually us. They had to make a statement because someone made a fake burner account that everybody thought was them, and it's crazy. People got too much time. So fun stuff.
Wow.
But thank you all so much for listening. Make sure you leave us that 5-star rating and review. Really helps us out. Helps us get found by other people. And make sure you follow us on Blue Sky at No Other Pod. Follow us on Instagram at Dan Kooser, at JCMax03, at No Other Pod. And watch us on YouTube, KCSN Soccer. You can check us out via the KC Sports Network app or shoot us an email, nootherpod@gmail.com. But until next time, he's Dan. I'm Jimmy. We'll catch y'all later. See ya.
What the hell is Blue Sky?